Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Inverted Podcast, where we discuss all things security, abuse, or things that might go wrong in the products we build and we sell. And as you know from us, we are a weird bunch because everything for us is upside down. Success is when nothing happens. We try to kick people out of our flows instead of keeping them in. And we have something called as the invisible line, which means we don't know how much badness is out there. Summarizing it, everything is different for us. And you can find all of us on LinkedIn. Dario, Dana, myself, and our guest of the day will introduce in a moment. And like every week, we represent ourselves, not the companies or the clients we work for. And we're having an open discussion. And we really look forward to connecting with you online. Today's special guest, we have Olivier, who is the Chief Information and Security Officer of TX Group. He will introduce himself shortly. Welcome, Olivier, to the podcast.
Thank you, Jeroen.
And today we've taken an interesting subject. We're going to talk about how we make some security decisions and how some of these things can be done in unconventional ways. And I want to start by, first of all, just giving Olivier the opportunity to introduce himself and what his organization does and what he does there.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Olivier. I'm the group CISO from this TX Group, nothing to do with Texas. We are the largest private media group in Switzerland, so very focused and localized for the market in Switzerland. It's a family business, more than 125 years old. We do newspaper. We do the largest newspaper in Switzerland. And obviously shifting from physical newspaper to digital. We do have now some of the largest websites in Switzerland. Fun fact, we are even considered as critical infrastructure by the authorities because we have a power to reach instantly 80% of the Swiss population through our medias and website. And maybe I should add, it's a fun industry because every industry is unique, but working with the freedom of a world with journalists is quite nice.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And maybe before we start talking about conventional versus unconventional security decisions, maybe let's first agree on what we optimize for. So Dario, coming with you, like when you've coached companies through security decisions, what are in general kind of the things we're trying to optimize for or trying to measure?
Well, we're trying to understand first what are their objectives, and sometimes their objectives are to meet certain regulatory requirements, like more compliance, play according to the rules, but more often than not, it's protecting certain assets. And the first conversation I always have with customers or with vendors who want to build technology is, what are the assets you want to protect? What is the harm do you want to prevent? And how do you know that that type of harm is happening? So that's always the start of a conversation before we start to talk about wills and like settings and whistles and technology. It's really to understand what do you want to prevent from happening, and what do you need to show in order to show that you're compliant with requirements imposed on you either by CISOs or by external bodies.
And so, Olivier, you've mentioned you've been marked as critical infrastructure from Switzerland. How has that changed things for you? Or was it always like that?
The fact to be treated as such, so we get more information from the cyber authorities in Switzerland, which is always nice to get a picture of what is happening around us. But in reality, I mean, being critical or not does not have any regulation or any downside to it. So it's just me getting a bit more infos on what is happening, and that's always something welcome.
So normally the way we think about security is like you can try to prevent it, and then once you see it, you can try to stop it, right? It's kind of prevention, detection, mitigation. We have the critical attacker journey that starts when the attacker gathers information to do the attack, and then it's the attack start, which is bypassing a login form or doing something else, and then they're in, and then they try to do the damage, and then the final stage is how we get this organization or user back into a healthy state, restore trust, etc. So could you highlight a few things that are just special about your organization versus other ones dealing with journalists and people from the media? Are there some things that are different or that you've found special?
Yes, of course. Maybe I should share with you my goal as a CISO. So this is the phrase I came with to the board, again, it's a family business, to the member of the family being at the head of the group. And I said, I want to make this company unattractive. And he stopped for a second and said, no, that's not what we want to do. And say, yeah, I want to do this unattractive to hackers. So I just want to make this company annoying. It's too hard, it's too complicated, it's too expensive to get in. And hackers being hackers, they will go for better fish or easier fish, except if it's a targeted attack. And I think we're not a bank, we are not an insurance, we have every type of freedom because journalists. So I'm not blocking anything, on the contrary. And I think that's the point. So yes, you can try, you can come in, and I'm not afraid. Yes, you can encrypt one of my servers as long as I detect and response in a good manner. It's okay with me. We are not gonna block completely, but just make this really, really annoying to get to the assets.
You mentioned you mentioned a couple like opposing things. You said family owned, like printed newspaper, digital, reaching 80% of the country. Like that's a collision between old and new technology. Is your user base or the people in your company, are there a lot of people that are computer savvy or not as much, or with the move to digital, you find most people are pretty know their way around a computer, or is that something that you always have to worry about?
No, they are fully digital. So we push these people to use all the tools, and we are really, really based on technology. So even generations or people who've never done this are forced to use the latest technology, and there is no discussion. And there is we school them, and of course it's. I don't think I have an issue with this generation problems. And of course I've got. You can imagine I've got people doing TikToks. Because social media is the first way to do the media, and then I have people on the other side pushing rolls of paper in the printing center. So it's a wide spectrum. Still, I think they are more and more fluent with technology, and I don't think there is a way around. You cannot do pen and paper if you want to survive in an email technology company.
How do you push that change through, Olivier? And are you also considering even more modern authentication like passkeys and passwordless?
So we do have this. So actually we are passwordless. We are bring your own device. We are identity driven. We have adaptive MFA. We are cloud first. We have public bug bounty. So my whole perimeter of security is quite, I would say, very modern today. And how we did this? We did the normal way. We got serverly hacked like 10 years ago because no one cared at all about security. The mindset was like, we are media. Who's gonna attack medias? We are good people. And they found out the hard way that it's not about good or bad people. It's about, hey, they reach a lot of the people. What if I distributed a malware on the website? And this started the whole journey. And in the back, fortunately, we had a CEO who understood this and say, I don't want this to repeat. So what do we need? What do we need to do? And we had all this modernization of the IT and of security. So it started not that long ago. And I guess we have all the freedom now to do very modern stuff and also unconventional.
Yeah, so that's one other question I wanted to ask you. Again, Dario, Dana, I have so many questions for Olivier. Feel free to jump in. You said something that I found really interesting you're basically saying, my goal is not to block them. They're welcome to come in. It just needs to be really annoying. Once they can come into a server, they can do, as long as I have good response and detection, I'm fine with it. So where a normal framework would be like prevention before the attack, and then the detection comes, you find it, and then you mitigate and you recover. You're almost saying like the first part, the prevention, is maybe less important than I hear normally in the industry.
Yes, I'm not focusing on this. Of course, we have this. We don't want people inside, but I'm not like completely sorry if there is someone inside. I say, okay, we missed something. Someone opened the door, whatever. It's not the end of the world as long as it's contained, and I can know they are not going to move laterally because it's blocked, or I'm fast enough to isolate the machine and say, okay, we missed something. And this is probably linked to the freedom we have. I'm not blocking a lot of things because journalists, they want to go on, drugs website, weapons website, shady places to do their articles. Let me give you a very unconventional idea. I did train those guys on the dark web. We organized training on dark web, and it's like, why would you push people to go there? And the reason, if I don't do it, they will go anyway, but they will go without knowing the basics. So I'm organizing trainings, and then at the end I say, remember, if you do some stupid stuff, I bring you with me to the board. So either you feel like you can do it nicely, or you don't, and we will help you do this. And I guess it was a very good exercise. You let the people try and say, oh, there is no Google search in the dark web. This is bad. And they most of them will never go there, but at least we know that they will not try in a very amateur way to do this.
That you mentioned, like being able to spot entry, as soon as it happens, and try to minimize incidents. That goes along. We were having a side chat about quote controversial security decisions, and when Zero Trust came out, and one of the tenets was assume breach. It's exactly that, right? And people struggle with it, which is basically, hey, like, for Zero Trust, you should always assume there's someone in your network, and make sure that you take steps to identify that and have enough logging to go and figure out what they did, and understand that, and like look at how your response is going to happen with that. And previously, everybody was focused on preventing or stopping things. And so when that came out in Zero Trust, I remember it, people just had problems, and probably still do, grasping that concept. Like, hey, you're going to get compromised. Like, you might already be compromised and not know it. Like, one of your jobs is to figure out as soon as possible, figure out everything that the bad actor's done, and be in a position to do that, and then be able to mitigate that. And that required a tremendous resource shift and mindset shift.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we are Zero Trust, and we assume everyone is bad until they show us that they are good. And we are shifting more and more towards the bring your own device. So actually, we give money to our employees to buy their own devices. And then we try to be very, very careful about what we implant on those machines. So it's just a little MDM, a certificate, and my security stuff, and that's it. So, and people do whatever they want with whatever machines, but show me your credentials. Show me that you are allowed to access the data. And this has killed a lot of those shadow IT where people were trying to sneak in on official machines, and now they do whatever you want. Change your wallpaper, I don't care. And people are happy, they get money, and then yes, we treat them as untrusted. That's for sure.
It's interesting because there's a whole other like set of companies that focus on endpoint protection, and like saying, like, if I control the endpoints and don't let anybody in, then that protects me all the way through, which is not always the case as well. So it's kind of a different schools of thought there on how to secure your environment.
Yes and no, sorry. Maybe when I say my little security, it's endpoint protection. So I have this endpoint protection on machines. So it's required that I know that the machine is clean, and my accessing the data is some crazy Okta rules that say, is your machine clean? Detected by the endpoint. Is the credential okay? Do I need to activate an MFA? And then the rules allows access to the data.
Right, but there's an extreme. Some people go like everything tunnels through the security software that goes on. Like they totally. And you need to only have a compliant device that's issued by the company, and it's kind of a different mindset.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Do you think that that there is a difference in mentality between like a media company like you and I don't know, a pharmaceutical company or a bank, where the information you hold is, let's say, obviously not everything, employee data or not, but like a lot of the information you hold is going to be public at some point. Like
Yes.
the product you produce is you write something, and on the moment where it's published, it's public. So the amount of IP you have to protect over years is much smaller than if you would be a pharmaceutical company where they don't publish the recipe, they publish the products that comes out of it. Do you think that makes it easier for you to have a more open and maybe less defined perimeters? Because the information, the assets you have, they're going to be public at some point anyway, per definition.
You're absolutely correct. So the data we have are public anyway. So even if you get access to them one day before, that would be not the end of the world. So yes, we don't have a lot. That said, there are small places where you have, like the Panama Papers or leaks or illegal data. So we also have this, and I try to close my eyes and say, I know there are stolen files, but it's part of the game. And in Switzerland, we have this protection of sources. So I'm making sure those entities who are really in the deep research and they protect these differently, and they don't put these in public clouds or whatever. But it's the case, yes.
You mentioned, you said you had the, large digital footprint. You also mentioned like you were a target for malware a while ago. And that brings into an interesting topic that we had discussed in the past, which is supply chain vulnerabilities. And like you're using an ad network potentially, right? Because that's how you generate revenue on your websites, and they might be the ones that serve up the malware unknowingly, which means that's going to all your users. Is there anything like is there anything you do about that, or ways to think? It's a really tough problem because you can secure yourself, but how do you know what your partners are up to?
That's a difficult topic. So especially this whole world of ads is now programmatic ads. So no one has a clue who is selling and buying the slot in the newspaper. So we're trying to put in place some kind of a firewalls for ads to be sure that they are coming from places where we know where they are coming from. It's quite effective, but I've not had in the recent years something. Before, yes, we had crazy bad malware ads. This is not flying anymore, so we stopped them for sure. Another thing we see, because of the reach, we see a lot of fake 20 minutes. So 20 minutes is the main website, so we see a lot of those. So they take our page and they turn this into a crypto scam. And this is how funny I'd say, okay, how do I deal with this? And what are the options? And we did actually buy a solution from a brand reputation to say those guys protecting the Nike and Louis Vuitton and artists world, why can't they protect us? And we do this, and we kill like 400 websites per year which are trying to sell fake stuff.
This is interesting because you said before that so you're buying this service that's protecting Louis Vuitton and some other brands. So you're treating yourself like a brand like this. One
Yes.
discussion you and I once had was about cyber insurance, and there you actually made a different choice than most people. So would you be willing to share about that as well?
Yeah, of course. I tried like 4 times to get a cyber insurance, and I had all the troubles in the world with people either old school, so asking questions like, "Do you change your password every 90 days?" And I was like, "No," and they say, "Oh, this is bad." Like, no, come on, this was 15 years ago, and most of those companies trying to sell cyber insurance had are struggling to understand the cloud world. It was like SSO, cloud, and everything passwordless, and they were really not up to date with the technology or the way we do stuff today. And this is unfortunate. So my stance on it is, give me the money, and I will invest this in defense rather than insurance. And this is quite controversial with a lot of people, because you need to have a cyber insurance. Will they pay? Well, I don't know. How much is the premium? I don't know. A lot of money. Give me the money, I'll do better. The second thing which I'm really worried is, true or not, are hackers going for people who have a cyber insurance? Because their probability to get paid is higher. And I guess I've read this, that they say, hey, we'll hack those guys who have an insurance. We have way more chances to get money. So periodically I check this and I say, no, I'd rather have the money for something else than insurance.
Well, one of the things I hear, like, is also like in a lot of companies, that the fear, like, if something happens, the trust between them and the customer is damaged, and cyber insurance is not going to fix that. Like, the fact that the cyber insurance is going to give you, I know, pay you for investigation or pay you for lost ad revenue, if they even would do that. But if trust has been broken because, I don't know, an article was published on your website that spreads misinformation, that trust is not going to be fixed by cyber insurance. So is that a thought process where you think, well, does that resonate with you? Because I've heard that from others who say that they're investing less or nothing in cyber insurance as well, because they say that the main damage is the one of trust towards the customer, and that you can't insure.
Yeah, it might be the case, but where will people go? I mean, we are in a closed market with not a lot of online newspapers, so they will go for the competition and say it's okay, it's not the one I'm used to. And I've seen when we got hacked 8-9 years ago, these 20 minutes they played it as an advantage. Say, here we are hacked like the big guys, and we solved it, and yes, we found malware. So they turn a bad thing into a kind of a story online in the newspaper, which is fantastic. So I don't think, I think they could lose trust, but up to us to make it sure and be transparent and say, yeah, it happened, and then there's nothing we can do. I don't think they would go somewhere else because there's not much else to go.
Another thing that we sometimes talk in this group is about industry collaboration. Like, I think in the last 10 years, or maybe certainly 5 years, in many industries, companies started to understand that working together to share risk signals and threat signals results into a safer internet rather than to keep everything by themselves. I mean, it's like this group here, like a part of where Dana and us met, and Jeroen and I met, was like about exchanging information when an email provider recycles email addresses. I know that, like, TX Group, you're part of the OneLog joint venture, like that makes a login system for, is it for your for the people visiting the website? Are there other examples where you work with competitors in order to exchange information to rely on to improve the security? I mean, you mentioned ad network. That's probably
Yes.
something that also is shared between companies, but are there other elements where you work with seeming competitors to benefit from it?
Yeah, so we work very closely with competitors. So I met regularly every quarter. I meet all the CISO from all the media in Switzerland because we have the same issue. We have freedoms and journalists and the same market. And we are very, very, very open. So we share everything which happens. It says in this round, but we do share a lot. And one of the reasons we share other stuff. So we have a lot of companies in common. So if I see Ringier, which is my competitor, we have a company called JobCloud with jobs, which is 50-50. You mentioned OneLog doing the login. It's doing the login for all the media in Switzerland. We are printing still the paper from like NZZ. It's a competitor, but we are the one printing the newspaper because they don't have a print center anymore. So yes, there's a lot of very open discussions, and this is for me a very good source of inspiration. So you can go there and say, hey, has anyone a solution for, or do you have a cyber insurance? And I will know exactly, and I have the plus and minuses for any topic. Yes.
You mentioned clone sites that potentially serve malware, and that was something like an effort you were looking at or trying to prevent. As things evolve, now a lot of people are worried about the world of AI and like scraping and taking your content and embedding it. Is that something that you've been looking at, or are you just, hey, our information is going to be out there anyways, there's not much we can do about it?
There is a huge amount of discussion about, do we block the bots? Do we allow them? Do we make them pay? And it's a fine balance because if you, there are technically, you can stop anyone and say, hey, you have paper crawl, you can access, but you have to pay. This is a difficult business question, and it's not for me to decide. It's more for the businesses you want to allow. And we are doing some tests. So at the moment, everything is open. So they are welcome to crawl and get all the information. Back there are all these legal questions and ethics and do we allow this? And the risk, if we don't, then we lose visibility. If we do, then of course it's content that we produce that should not be free. It's a complicated, and I think every media in the world is not even media only, but they are struggling with, do I let them in or do I make them pay? And if you are the New York Times, you say, oh, I make them pay. If you are a smaller player, maybe you say, I have to think a bit more about it. But yes, it's a very interesting topic.
It's interesting that you don't see it as a security topic, but much more as a business topic.
Yes.
And you've talked to us about a number of unconventional decisions you've taken, especially around cyber insurance, around focusing more on detection and mitigation and damage prevention, and just assuming, like really embracing the zero trust approach. And so at some point you must have brought these questions to the board before you executed them, right? Could you tell us a bit more about that conversation, and how can listeners of this podcast approach their stakeholders and make some of these arguments?
So I tell you how I approach the board. I don't come with those questions ever. I come and I always start with a joke, because there are people, and the subject of cybersecurity is always dry. So I try to be a bit joking there. I speak French when no one speaks French, and you've got the attention of the board when you do this kind of thing. I don't have any KPIs. I don't go there and say, here are my KPIs. I say, hey guys, fantastic year. We have not been hacked. and in the end, that's what they need. And then I do storytelling. I say, okay, we've not been hacked, but let me show you the 3 or 4 stories where it was really bad, but we stopped it and it had no or little business impact. I don't want them to feel that it's easy and that we don't do. We do see ugly stuff and we stop ugly stuff. But I don't think there is a need to question them. I want some trust. I want these guys up there to say, okay, you have a job, you do it. We don't care how you do it. We care that we are not down or hacked or again, losing money in a way or another. And I think that's my goal to be sure that they are not drawn into meantime between incident and how is it a good metric, the incident? In the end, I can have 5,000 and they say, ooh, or I can have 5. If those 5 are nasty ones, and the volume is irrelevant. And
so then, let's say that there's someone listening to this podcast that's a CEO of a company or something, and they are worried because they've never thought about cybersecurity. I was speaking to a company today, and I asked them, "Hey, what type of risk have you taken?" And they were like, "Wait, what risk?" I said, "Well, by not thinking about it, you have unconsciously taken a risk, maybe 10 million, maybe 50 million, maybe whatever." And then this person looked at me and said, "What are the kinds of questions I should be asking my team?" And I said, "That's a great question for another topic." So I wanted to ask you, what type of questions should leaders ask of their organization, maybe their IT teams? How should they engage with functions like CISO or CIO? What are like the 3 or 4 questions they should always ask?
They always ask, are we safe? And the reason are we safe is we've seen, you mentioned Dario OneLog, they got severely hacked last year. And this was a cyber sabotage, so an internal guy that wiped everything. And they are relating to this and say, can it happen to us? And it's like, yes, it can, but here is the reason why it cannot. So I would say this is the question: are we safe? Can this, what we've seen in our newspaper, I read this, can this happen to us? The next question would be, is the budget adequate? Is the team adequate, or do you need more, whatever, or less? I had a very strange question at the board. They asked me why the budget was decreasing. And that's not a question. I said, no, I'm doing fine tuning. I'm just removing stuff which I don't think add value to the security. I'm also decreasing my team. I don't think we mentioned this. Well, so TX is 3,500 people, and we are 2 people doing cybersecurity, and we have no external SOC, no external, another unconventional. I don't have a SOC external. I don't have consultant. I don't have help. I do this everything internally. And and you cut corners when you do this.
Keeps you busy.
You also get trust by your board by not always asking just for more money and for more resources. Do they trust you more because of that?
I think so. They even in the last board meeting I did, they were a bit taken back by the rosy positive attitude. They say, but it's nothing bad. You don't have any worries? I say, of course I have worries, but it's not that I cannot deal with it. So they were a bit afraid that I was like over optimistic, and I say, no, I have printing center and I have Windows XP machines, and guess what? I have MS DOS machines. And this is obviously not really good into in 2025. And I say, but no, it's of course it's a concern. And if I had a magic wand, I would remove those because I don't like having this kind of stuff. Or but as long as everything is under control, that's fine. I feel good.
How much do you have to worry? Like, we didn't get into this, but you guys are potential targets for nation state, which is like a whole, I think, right? Because they might want to find attribution or access to material that you guys have. And that's like a whole other level of adversary.
Yes.
And is that something that worries you above and beyond like the normal like drive-by, or is it just part of the course?
Yes, it does worry me because you know it, I know it. They have infinite amount of power and potential. It worries me a bit less as we had a state nation attack inside, and that's part of the deal. How do you deal with that? And I think I learned quite a lot of at this moment when you get a call from Andreas from the Secret Service Switzerland that says we need to talk, and they don't tell you why and how and what's happening, and it was a nice exercise to say, okay, how do we do this? How do we explain to the leaders what is happening? And then, okay, it's bad, but again, we want to be sure that it was there just very punctual at one stage and what place. But yes, and I don't think you can do much about this if someone has decided to do this. We had in the past targeted attacks. So it was a DDoS on one site, and there's okay. Then the next day was another of our brands, and then on third day we say, okay, it's not random. It's actually they are going one brand after one brand, and this lasted 32 days, and we were very open. So we made articles in the newspaper. We say we are doing our best. It's DDoS. It's random. And again, you learn by this. You are bound to be attacked, and again, if there is money to be made, or someone is not happy with one of our article, who knows? We do see this kind of threats, but not better or worse than other industry, I would say.
It certainly makes your job interesting.
I had the opportunity to work with some news companies in past gigs, and I found it really interesting how the attack surfaces are sometimes different. Like we tried to back then in the US, we tried to get the White House correspondent of a large newspaper register security keys on her account, and like she was always on the way, always on the run, and so never had time for it. And at some point, somebody from the SOC team, security team at the newspaper said, you should chase the sports and restaurant journalists, because those are the ones being attacked by more sophisticated attacks sometimes than the White House correspondent. So I thought, well, why is that a case? And I said, well, the sports journalist knows who has an injury. So the sports betting people, they want to have access to their email address to know which athlete has a limp and might miss a few games in the next rounds. And the food journalists, they know about labor issues within the food industry. And I mean, we ended up, yes, the journalist, the White House correspondent, ended up registering security keys on her Gmail accounts, but they ended up doing a lot of interesting work to protect the so-called soft targets in the media world, because the direct financial benefits from compromising them was much more immediate than getting the
and so actually you're saying this is what we were saying before, right? Like there is money to be made, and when there's money to be made, the attacks follow. And I think this is something that I've taken away a lot today. We are unfortunately getting to the end of our episode, so I've learned a lot. So, Olivier, thank you so much. I've learned that not just investing in one part of the attacker journey, but actually just coming to terms with the fact that people will come in and investing further down to containing it. The fact that you give people more freedom actually makes them behave better. Which is also an interesting one, and wherever there's money to be made, attacks will come. So it's just, again, damage is the ultimate metric. And with all of that, I want to thank you, Olivier, for joining. I would definitely love to have you back for another episode in the future. Yes. And also thanks again for Dario and Dana for getting up really early, like always, and Dario. And to those of us, for those of you listening, thanks for listening in. As always, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. We have an inverted product group that you can join, and you can connect with any of us on LinkedIn and ask us more questions. And with that, thank you so much and have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.